So now we have built up enough theory of Lebesgue measurable sets, so that now we can come to the main and the most important aspect of Lebesgue's theory of Lebesgue's measure theory, which is the theory of integration. So as I have mentioned before, one of the main motivations for developing the theory of measures was because Riemann's theory of integration was not sufficient, and it had some drawbacks, and one of the main motivations for the Lebesgue's theory of integration and subsequently the Lebesgue's measure theory was to overcome these drawbacks in Riemann's theory of integration. So let me recall some drawbacks of Riemann's theory of integration. Some drawbacks of Riemann's theory of integration. So the first point is that of course here I am only talking on for the Riemann integrals on the real line R. So first of all, it is that a function, so Riemann's theory, Riemann integration is valid only for bounded functions on compact sets or bounded sets of R. So if the function is unbounded, the theory of ordinary Riemann integrals is not sufficient, and then one has to pass to what is called an improper Riemann integral. But for ordinary Riemann integration, only bounded functions are allowed, and that too with support on bounded sets on R. So they are of the form f e from defined on a finite interval a b to R or C. So this is the one of the first drawbacks, that it only allows for bounded functions defined on compact sets of R. Secondly, we have seen that since E is Jordan measurable, is equivalent to saying that chi E is Riemann integrable. So we proved this statement. This is an if and only if condition. So this means that even if f is bounded, there exist many functions whose Riemann integral does not exist. So for example, take any non-Jordan measurable set E and take chi E. So we have seen many examples of bounded sets which are not Jordan measurable. So the modified Cantor set was one example, then the union of small enough intervals over the rationals, this was another example of a bounded open set. So these are not Jordan measurable, therefore their indicator functions will not be Riemann integrable. So Riemann integration, even if you take bounded functions, then also the class of bounded functions for which it is Riemann integrable is not large enough. Third, that if Fn, say R to R, is a sequence of Riemann integrable functions, then the pointwise limit, so let's suppose that converging pointwise, so here let me put AB to R, so we have fixed a finite interval on which all these fn's are defined. So converging pointwise to F, then F may not be Riemann integrable. So for example, if you take an enumeration of the rationals Qi, I from 1 to infinity, and inside let's say 0, 1, and take An to be the union of to be the set of the first n rationals in so let me denote this as A, where Q equals this enumeration of all rational numbers. So you are only considering rational numbers inside 0, 1. So if you take An to be the rationals inside A, inside 0, 1, but only finitely many, then chi An converges to chi A, and this is, so each of these is Riemann integrable because it has only finitely many points of discontinuity, since chi An has finitely many points of discontinuity. On the other hand, if you take the indicator function for all the rationals in 0, 1, this is not integrable, this is not Riemann integrable, because it's this is a nowhere continuous function. It's not continuous at any point in 0, 1. So we see that pointwise limit of bounded Riemann integrable functions may converge to a function which is not Riemann integrable. So this is another drawback for Riemann's theory. And last but also not the least is that Riemann's theory, Riemann integration, even if you consider improper Riemann integrals which do allow some unbounded functions, Riemann integration only works on R or let's say Rn. So it only works on Euclidean spaces Rn. So we see that when we have constructed an abstract theory of measures, we can also define integration on an abstract set, abstract measurable space, and then we will have a very nice theory of integration which more or less will address almost all these shortcomings that we have listed here. So first one is that it's valid only for bounded functions on compact sets. Second is that even if f is bounded, it may not be Riemann integrable. And third is that a sequence of Riemann integrable functions may converge to a function which is not Riemann integrable. So and of course the last we have seen that it only restricts the theory to Rn, and what we will propose the Lebesgue's theory of integration, which will work not only for any abstract measurable space but also most of these issues that we face here will be addressed, of course given some additional constraints, but nevertheless they allow for a much larger class of functions to be integrated. So let's come to Lebesgue's theory of integration, Lebesgue integrals. So first we will define integrals for simple functions, simple measurable functions. So whenever I say simple functions, I will assume that it is measurable, and then we will define integrals for unsigned measurable functions, and then we define integrals for real measurable and subsequently complex measurable functions. So we will follow these steps. So this is first, this is second, and this is the third step, in which we will step by step define the notion of a Lebesgue integral. So let's start with integrals for simple functions. So the idea here will be to mimic the construction for the piecewise constant Riemann-Darboux integral. Idea is to mimic the construction for the piecewise constant Riemann-Darboux integral which takes a piecewise constant function g. So g, if g is a piecewise constant function defined on a box B in Rd, then there exists a partition Bi I equal to 1 to n, finite partition of B into boxes such that G can be written as alpha I chi of Bi I equal to 1 to n. So this was a piecewise constant function, and the piecewise constant Riemann-Darboux integral on Rd G dm is by definition then I equal to 1 to n alpha I, the measure of Bi. So this was the definition of the piecewise constant Riemann-Darboux integral, which is defined like this. So we will now allow first of all we will take a simple function which will be of the form alpha I chi of ai's, where ai's may not be boxes but they will be definitely Lebesgue measurable functions, and then we can use a similar formula to define what is called the Lebesgue integral. So this is the idea for simple how to mimic the piecewise constant in Riemann-Darboux integral. So first let me fix, I will work on fix measure space measure space x b mu, and take now a simple function, an unsigned simple function. So S is a map from x to 0 plus infinity, but not including plus infinity, of the form S is equal to sum I equal to 1 to n. So it's a finite sum of finite linear combination of indicator functions ai measurable and alpha I belongs to the positive non-negative real numbers for each I in 1 to up to n. So this is a simple function. So then we can define the simple Lebesgue integral of a simple function So let S be as above. Then the simple Lebesgue integral denoted by with integral sign over x, but with a cross sign. S d mu is defined to be the sum I equal to 1 to n alpha I mu of ai, and this is by definition this simple Lebesgue integral for the simple function S. So here note that alpha I can be 0 and mu of ai can be plus infinity, because we are no longer working on boxes. So the measures can be plus infinity and it can be 0. S can take the value 0 on a measurable set of measure plus infinity, in which case we take the convention we take the convention 0 times plus infinity is 0, so that when the simple function takes the value 0 on a measurable set of infinite measure, it does not contribute to this sum alpha I mu ai, so it will be 0. So this is the definition for the simple function. We can also define this integral S e d mu for any measurable subset of x, E of x, and this is defined as, so in the first instance we defined it for the whole space x, but it is simply a very easy modification to define it for over any measurable subset E of x, and here you take the sum alpha I mu of ai intersection E, again with the same convention that 0 times plus infinity is 0. So now let's look at some basic properties for the simple Lebesgue integral. So we take two simple functions S and R. They are simple measurable functions on some measure space x b mu, and we fix a measurable subset E of x. Then the first two properties is the linearity property. So if alpha is a scalar, a non-negative scalar, then the integral of the simple function alpha s is equal to alpha times the simple integral of s. So this is very easy, and I leave it as an exercise for you to do. The second one is that the simple integral of the sum of two simple functions, which is again a simple function, so this is a simple function, is equal to the sum of the simple integrals of s and r. So this is the first two properties taken together give you the linearity property for the simple Lebesgue integral. The third one is monotonicity, which says that if S is pointwise bounded by R, then the simple Lebesgue integral of S is bounded by simple Lebesgue integral of R. So this is also left as an exercise because it's quite easy. And lastly, the measure, the map. This is the measure property, which the map which assigns to any measurable set E the simple Lebesgue integral S for a fixed simple function S. This defines a measure on B, which means that it is a countably additive measure on B. So also I will leave the last property as an exercise. So I'll just prove the second property here, and let's look at the proof for 2, which is that if, so this is what we have to show, that the simple integral of S plus R d mu is equal to S d mu plus a simple integral of R d mu. So let us suppose that S is written as alpha I chi of ai, I equal to 1 to n, and R is a simple function j1 to m, maybe different from this n defined for S, and we can have beta I chi of bj. So beta j chi of bj. So these are the representations of simple functions with respect to measurable functions ai's and bj's and scalars, non-negative scalars alpha i's and beta j's. Note that this collection ai is disjoint collection, and alpha I is not equal to alpha j if I is not equal to j. So these are distinct values, and similarly for beta bj's and beta j. So we have that this collection of disjoint unions of ai's and bj's is given by the whole space X. So X can be written as the union of ai's and also the union of bj's, which means that for each fixed I, in 1 to up to n, ai is the union j equal to 1 to m ai intersection bj. So we can decompose each ai in this way, and similarly for each j, fixed j in 1 to up to m, we have bj is the union of I equal to 1 to n bj intersection ai. So the first one, for example, implies that chi of ai is the sum j equal to 1 to m chi of ai intersection bj, and the second one implies that chi of bj is similarly I equal to 1 to n chi of ai intersection bj. So let's see what is the integral of S plus R and what is the RHS, which is the sum of integrals of S and R. Now let's try to compute the LHS. So this is the simple Lebesgue integral of S plus R, and note that S plus R is also a simple function, and what we need is a representation of so let me say, if S plus R is represented as a sum k equal to 1 to L gamma k chi of C k, where range of S plus R is gamma 1, gamma 2 and so on up to gamma L, and Ck is equal to the set x, set of points in X such that S plus R x is equal to gamma k. So now, since we know the ranges of S and R individually, the set of gamma k's is easy to compute, which is simply the set alpha 1 plus beta 1 plus then alpha 1 plus beta 2 plus alpha 1, sorry, these are commas, alpha 1 plus beta m, and then alpha 2 plus beta 1, alpha 2 plus beta 2 and so on, alpha 2 plus beta m and so on. Then we have alpha n plus beta 1, alpha n plus beta 2 and so on up to alpha n plus beta n. So these are the possible ranges for the function S plus R, and so let gamma k equals alpha I plus beta j. So of course one has to reorder this set up to 1 to L, and then we have to write gamma k for alpha I plus beta j's. So gamma k is alpha I plus beta j, and Ck is exactly the set as S inverse alpha I plus S inverse at alpha I intersection R inverse beta j, which is nothing but Ai intersection Bj. So the integral of S plus R d mu is going to be equal to the double sum Ij, so I j belonging to the set 1 to up to n cross 1 to up to m. Then you have alpha I plus beta j, and then you have the measure mu of Ai intersection Bj intersection E, and this is nothing but the double sum I from 1 to n, j from 1 to m, alpha I plus beta j, and then you have the measure Ai intersection Bj intersection E. So this is the RHS, the LHS. This is the LHS, and now for the RHS we have individually S d mu plus R d mu, which is nothing but the sum I equal to 1 to n alpha I mu Ai plus j equal to 1 to m beta j mu Bj, and now we are going to use the finite additivity property. Alpha I mu Ai can be written as j equal to 1 to m mu Ai intersection Bj plus j equal to 1 to m beta j, and then again you can write I equal to 1 to n mu of bj intersection ai. So now we can collect the terms, so both are intersected with e here, also here. So everywhere you have an intersection, further intersection with e, and so we can collect the terms with ai and bj. So you will get again the double sum 1 to m alpha I plus beta j, and then you have mu of ai intersection bj intersection e. So from the first line to the second line we used finite additivity of the measure mu, and so we see that this is also equal to the LHS, and so we are done. So this establishes the first few basic properties of the simple Lebesgue integral.